step 11. I've entitled our handout tonight, Our Life in God, the Flow. I was just telling Amanda, a couple of years ago, I did a series of retreats through the Leadership Institute. It's a spiritual formation organization that's been around for 35, 40 years. It's mostly, it was founded and administrated by professors from Fuller Seminary. And it's a series of retreats that unfold over 2 years. You have 3 retreats each year for 2 years. And pastors and Christian leaders come from all over the world to attend these retreats. And I begged, borrowed, and lied my way to get into these retreats. And I'm so glad I did. One of the people who was one of our mentors and guides, and he became very much a personal mentor and guide to me, was a guy named Dr. Chuck Miller. And sadly, he passed away last year. But he explained a working relationship with God like this: pitcher, cup, saucer, plate. Pitcher is God. And out of the pitcher is the flow. The cup is me and you. Our job in the cup is to be in the flow. Because the pitcher is where our sustenance comes, our source comes. And if that pitcher goes somewhere, we best go that place. And the idea is to stay under that pitcher knowing that we will be overwhelmed and will overflow to the saucer, which is our friends and close family and those closest to us. And then it will overflow on from them onto the plate, which is the world at large. And for 2 years, I would hear Dr. Miller talk about pitcher, cup, saucer, plate, to the point where one day when he was lecturing on this, about a 90-minute lecture, with the pitcher, cup, saucer, plate. And you know what? It never got boring. And I think about this all the time, and it has quietly but profoundly made me think different about my role and my junior partnership with my Maker. And so I put in the flow. Sorry for the long answer on that. I hope I'm not going to be too long-winded tonight. So, step 11. My mother in 1986, she took her life. She put a gun to her head and pulled the trigger. She had a very, very painful, sad life. And as I've gotten to know her in the last few years before she committed suicide, and as I've studied kind of her life since then, she's become one of my heroes. And quite honestly, I don't think there would be a picture of my childhood if it wasn't for my mom. No one else seemed to have an interest in taking my picture, but my mom took a lot of them. Wow. So, kind of off the subject and kind of a sidebar, but as I'm wrapping up this series, I want to give back to you personally what you have given to me, which is a lot. And I just wanted to tell you about this because it's not just about me. It's about my mom. And the simple beauty that can be captured in a moment that can carry you forward. So every moment of your life has the potential to be a life-saving treasure for somebody else. We'll talk about that more next week when we do step 12. Step 11 says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Before we get into the readings, I'd just like to share some thoughts with you that I had as I sat at my desk, kind of devotionally thinking about step 11. And the first word, sought, just jumps off the page at me. It always does when I think about step 11, because I think about that seeking, that yearning, that grasping for that hunting, the seeking, that played itself out in all of my addictive behaviors. You know, I used to joke that I could be in a city that I'd never been to before, but if I was in the mood to go find some cocaine, within an hour I could find it. You know, go to the ATM and then go to the parts of town where that stuff is known to exist. And I could find it. I had learned to be kind of an informed seeker, if you will. In fact, I believe that our addictions and the insatiability of our addictions is something that it's symptomatic of something bigger. It's not just the fact that we are spoiled brats that can't get enough. By the way, how many of you people have ever had someone ask you, can't you ever be happy? Hundreds of times. How much is enough for you? You'll never be satisfied. You're never satisfied with whatever you get. You ungrateful child. Heard that last week. Hear that? Don't ever apologize for the insatiability that you feel. I believe that insatiability is the hallmark of eternity implanted within you, and yet you're stuck in this earthly experience that just can't give you everything that your soul desires. And after a while, without a degree of meaningful hope or the essential minimum requirement of understanding that our insatiability is a good thing, is what drives our passion. And if someone wants to neuter that and take that away from us, well then give me a beer. No. Don't give me one beer. Give me a whole lot of beers. Because if the insatiability is evil, then I have to escape it. So, to that part of you that seeks whatever, make peace with that and learn to work with others and work with God to move it in a direction where it is made whole. Prayer and meditation. Prayer is our speaking to God. And I think sometimes our best prayers happen when we don't even know that we're praying. And I really think that this is where journaling or going through the day with your little notepad or your journal, just stopping a few times to say, you know what, I flipped the guy off on the freeway. Or I'm this or that. And understanding that so that you're in touch with your own expression. God sees it all. He hears it all. He never turns away. He has an interest in everything you express and emote. So should you. Get in touch with how you express your frustrations, equally as much as how you express your thanksgiving. Whatever it is, listen to your own voice. Write it down. It's important to God, and let it be important to you because there's a message there. Meditation is our commitment to hear. And in the Leadership Institute, each of these retreats, they would give you these big blocks of time where you would have nothing to do. If you wanted to go jogging, you could go jogging. If you wanted to go down and take a nap, take a nap. The idea was to be alone, to be in silence, to be connected with your own experience so that you could take note of it. So yes, meditation is a commitment to silence. Maybe a day of silence, maybe an afternoon of silence. One of the best assignments I ever got early on in my recovery was when my counselor told me to go to the beach. What? I'm not a surfer. What am I going to go to the beach for? Well, I just want you to go to the beach. I don't have time to tell you the story, but I was so frustrated that he gave me the assignment to go to the beach. What in the world am I going to do to go to the beach? But I did. It was an assignment. I went to the beach and I sat there like this for about 10 minutes. Thinking it was like an hour, and I looked down and was like, oh my gosh, it's 10 minutes. What am I going to do for the next 2 hours? And then I noticed a kid chasing a seagull. And I was fascinated. And then from the kid chasing the seagull, I noticed the surfers. Oh, wow, those guys are amazing. I noticed all these people. The beautiful people with their beach bodies and the not so beautiful people that made me feel a whole lot better about myself. And next thing I knew, 2 or 3 hours went by. And as I walked back, and I had to walk up this long hill from the beach to get back to the parking lot. And I was still a smoker at the time, so I'm like, puffing up this hill. And as I got to the hill and I unlocked my car, I felt different. I had an experience that I had never had before. It was an experience where I learned for just a moment what it was like to be in the moment and to be aware of a world around me and the intrigue of it all. Now, here was the lesson for me. If the beach can teach me that, there's so much more for me to learn in any moment. Go back to your journaling. In the last year or so, I just started going back to journaling that I did 15, 16 years ago. I must tell you, there is a significant amount of my life and my character that has not changed a whole lot. I am as much of a sinner today as I was when I was smoking crack. And that's okay. But there's other parts in my journaling where I look back and I go, oh my goodness. Who could have ever imagined? I couldn't have imagined 15 years ago with who I am today and the life that God is leading me and the challenges that He is setting before me. Listen to your life. The greatness of it and the ugliness of it. Your life is your gift to yourself and to the world. Improve our conscious contact. I had lunch earlier this week with a pastor I've known for a number of years. Actually, I've known of him for a number of years, and I knew that he knew me. We had a lot of friends in common, but we had never met face to face. And I actually met him at watching a baseball game where the Astros were winning. You know, I'm from Houston, so I love the Astros. And he wasn't so happy, but we chatted and we agreed to go to lunch. And I bought him lunch to make him feel better. And he asked me, he said, so I've read your story. I've heard about what you do. What is God to you? He asked me that question. And I said, surprised me. I said, it's the presence. It's the presence. You know, I can give you a theological answer for God. You've heard that 100,000 times. God, as you understand Him, is not a theological point. It's a personal point. Most of us in this room share, I would say, 90% common ground with our theology. But the way you think about God and the way you experience God, and this is the fantastic, incredible beauty about how personal God is that He relates with you like you're the one and only. And same way with me. And your person on your right and on the left. And that's what this step 11 is all about. It's not so that you can get a graduate degree in theology and go have the arguments. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. But this is so much more personal than that. Another thing that jumps out at me is knowledge and power. Prayer, true to step 11, will always be rewarded with what we ask for. Anything else may lead us to disappointment and a disillusionment. I think that God's greatest gift to any of us will be Himself, His presence. And when we ask for the knowledge of His will and the power to carry that out, we will get it. If we ask for anything more or anything less, we're likely to go away empty-handed, wondering once again, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't God listen? And okay, as we normally do, I have some readers, and the readers are all is where we really get our great work in. So our first reader is Miss Karen, and if you would.
Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. Before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life. Philippians 4:6-7, the Message. Our Journey Home, page 231. Prayer helps us to work with God to build our future. It plays a huge role in determining what kind of people we will be and what kind of impact we will have on the world. It may be helpful to pray for others to change, but it is always more important to pray that we will change. Prayer changes us. As we are changed, the influences we have on our surroundings will change too.
And your thoughts, please, Ms. Karen.
I was thinking about it as I was thinking back when I'll have 6 years in December.
Congratulations.
Month. Yeah, I'm so excited. So what was that like? What was my prayer life like before recovery? Even though I did a lot of women's Bible studies, every time that the issue would raise or there would be a problem in my life, I just remember running to other people and, like, oh my gosh, this is happening in my life and it's so scary. And now I think through working the steps and having that relationship with God and knowing my freedom in Christ, I just love going to Him. And that's my first thing. It's like just getting in that quiet place and praying, Lord, help me. Give me your wisdom and your knowledge to face this. And if it's something I need to make an amends so that I can let it go and move on and find the lesson, all those wonderful things that comes through prayer. And so I wouldn't have that, I feel, if I hadn't worked the steps and worked the program.
Great. Anybody else have any thoughts on this part? What is your first name? Frank. Thank you for that, Frank. For the sake of the audio, let me rephrase. You were kind of recapping and affirming what Karen was saying, that the beauty and the priority of the private vertical connection. And I appreciated when you said that too. I have had a problem because of my weak prayer life at various times of my life. I would find myself kind of compulsively running around, talking it all up with all kinds of people. And make no mistake, having counselors and wise counsel is very, very helpful. But what we're asking for here is we're asking for direction and empowerment. I can go ask and by the way, I have an advisory board for Operation Integrity, and I'm on the phone with one of them almost every day. And I need advisors because I can go off the reservation without, in a blink of an eye. I found in my experience how when I am most inclined to be seeking all this outside counsel, I already know what the right thing is to do. I'm just trying to find an alternative because I just really don't want to do it. God's plan's not really convenient for me. So thank you for that, Frank. And thank you, Karen. Our second reader tonight is that Francis? Yes. Thank you, Francis.
Anyone who drinks the water I give will never thirst, not ever. The water I give will be an artesian spring within gushing fountains of endless life. John 4:14. Listening requires only the intention and desire to accept the sound that someone else makes. It's natural, like a mother's intuitive ear that is tuned to the slightest sound her sleeping child makes. Meditation, listening for the sound of God, is a filling of our heart and mind with God's heart and mind. It gives us a deepening friendship with Jesus because Jesus appreciates us listening to him like any friend of ours would appreciate it when we listen to them.
I love hearing you read, by the way, Francis. But your thoughts, please, ma'am.
So, like you, I had a beach encounter this morning. Right before I started work, I walked down to the beach, and I just sort of stood there. And as I was looking out on the water, I noticed this collection of birds that were on the water. And as the waves were kind of going up and down, the birds just went along with the waves. And it was fascinating because I was waiting for the wave to kind of come in and kind of topple them over, but it just didn't happen for the 5 or so minutes that they just kept kind of ebbing and flowing with the water. And what I heard from that and seeing that was this notion of don't go against the grain. You know, in your day, just go with the flow. That was the message for me. And that went beautifully well throughout my day until the end of my day. I had to go to Trader Joe's. And I had a couple car encounters where one person almost cussed me out, and then the other person was like literally yelling at me.
Was that you? I'm so sorry.
So the second encounter flustered me so much that I just found a spot in Trader Joe's, and I sat there probably for 10 minutes just trying to calm down. And when I was trying to make sense of what happened, that message came back to me. You went against the grain. This guy was trying to turn. I was trying to go straight. He could have turned, but I wasn't moving. And it was like, you should have just gone straight. So that was your bad. So this notion of just listening, my struggle is, to a certain extent, a need to control. But just sitting there and just listening and being reminded of what I was told earlier in the day, and that was just to go with the flow. So,
thank you, Francis. So, what I'm hearing is a commitment to be aware. It's making the decision, having the mindfulness, for that, using that popular term that's real popular today, being mindful, to be aware. Awareness precedes change. Nothing happens. Nothing changes until we go, And we realize that something needs to change. And then there are options. And then the question is, okay, what can I do with it? Which is a deeply spiritual conversation to have. Thank you, Francis. Appreciate that. Anybody else on that section? Well, I wish that we did not catch that on audio, which I wish we had, because what you shared was dynamic. It was so right on. I appreciate that. To recap, let me know if I've listened well. But you said the first word was listening. Again, the intention, the commitment, the willingness, the interest to be aware, to hear the sound. In fact, I just reread this sentence, and apparently I wrote this sentence because it's in my book. Apparently I wasn't listening to myself when I wrote this. But it says, listening requires only the intention and desire to accept the sound that someone else makes. The genesis of my relational brokenness starts because I can't shut up. And even if I'm not opening up my mouth, saying something to someone, I'm thinking something about them. We've all heard the saying, listen. Most of us listen to answer instead of listen to hear. That's kind of a popular saying. Things popping up on Facebook all over the place. And it's true. And I think we do that with God, and I think we even do that with ourselves. We're always kind of like prejudging the outcome. Briefly, to kind of recap what you were saying, and right along with what Francis was saying, this assignment that I got, I was sober maybe 3 or 4 months, 5 months. I was just profoundly uncomfortable. I'm smoking 3 packs a day. I mean, I'm sitting in a chair vibrating like a paint mixer. Every sentence has 3 or 4 F-bombs in it. And I am just I'd like to say a miserable young man, but I was 40 years old. So I don't think that's that young anymore. Thank you. Thank you. So Bob Orman, my first sponsor, says, and he had been giving me this homework for weeks and weeks and weeks, this big homework. Okay, read this and go home and write 6 pages. And I would do this because I was afraid that if I do and write, they might send me back to the judge, and the judge would send me to jail because I was doing this to stay out of jail. And the thought of staying sober for the rest of my life, that might as well have been the same thought of like jumping over the moon or something. Which I tried once when I was smoking crack, and I crashed and burned. Didn't work out real well. And he says, okay, no assignment for you this week. And I said, but what? No assignment? He goes, yeah, no assignment. And I could not accept that. What? Nothing to do? He said, no. Take the week off. And I would not accept that. And I argued with him. He said, finally. He said, okay, fine. I have an assignment for you. Your assignment is to go to the beach. I said, what? Yeah, your assignment is to go to the beach. Oh, I get it. You want me to go to the beach, and you want me to take my big book, and what do you want me to read? And you want me to do my journaling at the beach? No, I just want you to go to the beach. Oh, so I should go to the beach and do some exercise or something, or, I don't know. He goes, no. Don't you know how to go to the beach? Well, no, I really didn't know how to go to the beach. Finally, he was so frustrated, he says, get out of my office. And he throws me out of his office. And the last thing he said before slamming the door was, just go to the beach. Wham! Slams the door shut. And so the next day after work, and I was a contractor then. I was working in Laguna Beach. And in the morning I threw my shorts and my tennis shoes and a little chair. and into my truck, and I did my work, and I came to the parking lot at Salt Creek Beach. Many of you know where that beach is. Changed my clothes in the truck, walked down to the beach where I had the experience that I explained a few minutes ago. And I'm so grateful for that. It was the first time in my life that I realized that I could benefit from doing nothing. From being quiet, stopping, breathing, listening. Now, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I've learned to do this. I get tired a lot quicker, so I stop and slow down a lot quicker than I used to. But that's when I'm reminded that the presence, my friend, the presence, is still with me. Okay, Ira, you're our cleanup hitter, so to speak.
Can I add something?
Yes, sir.
Say right now? My name is Pedro, by the way.
Thanks, Pedro.
And it's been very interesting how you listed listening, desire, and intention. And when you said that you, as much as a senior, you were yesterday as you are today, I can totally relate to what you said, and I never understood really the meaning of that for myself. And when you said that, really I started thinking like a switch. Back in the day, I think of a switch. You don't lead up when somebody turns you on. You make the light go on. And as of today, I see you more of a source of the main line. Mm-hmm. Supplying electricity for everything. Right. Understanding more God, what God is. And I think that's one the changes that we see in people is when we no longer are a switch. Somebody has to turn us on. Yeah. And that's really I always have the desire and the listening, but I never had the intention. Mm-hmm. And that's really I always listen to God. I always have desire to change, but I don't think I ever had the intention to do it. And it's pretty beautiful what you're saying.
Well, Pedro, what you're saying is very beautiful to me. If you didn't hear, Pedro was talking about the flow, the switch, plugging in, the source. I have to think that sometimes our hesitance to plug into the source, well, for one, we're naturally born sinners, and it's kind of in our nature. One of the things that God in His gentleness has taught me over the years is that even when I abandon Him and leave Him, He never abandons or leaves me. And I can walk all day long going, doing what I want to do, living life by my own agenda. And then at some point when I come to my senses, for whatever reason, usually pain is a great motivator for me in bringing me back to my senses, I go, oh God. And God lets me know He has not abandoned me. So thank you for speaking to me. Yeah. I appreciate that, Pedro. Ira, sir.
Trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do. Everywhere you go, He's the one who will keep you on track. Proverbs 3:5-6 from the Message. Our journey home, page 236. We speak when we pray, but we listen when we meditate. In fact, prayer without listening to God is not healthy for us. Our prayers become self-centered if we don't listen to what God has to say. Very often, the best thing we can do for our spiritual growth is to stop. Stop working, stop playing, stop everything. Be still, be quiet, listen. So, looking at the time, since I'm the timekeeper.
You take all the time you want.
Woo! Looking at, you have a number of prayers here, and they're all, I love them all, but very often in this program, we don't finish the serenity prayer.
Yeah.
And the second sentence starts with this: living one day at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. And for me, I was looking, being Jewish, I was looking at Deuteronomy, where it says you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your might. And that was taught to me as a commandment. But what this step has taught me is that I will grow to love the Lord with all my heart and with all my might as I pray and listen, as we were talking about earlier. And I think one of the things that also helped me early in my sobriety is when somebody pointed me to the back of the book Alcoholics Anonymous, to the appendix on spiritual experiences. And being addicts and alcoholics, codependents, all the things we are in this room, we're always habituated to the immediate instant fix. And slowing down and listening is a lot of time against our natural way of doing things, or the way we used to do things. And as we do them more and we practice this step as we've gone through the other 10, it becomes more natural. And I know for me, the hunger to hear from God is just what you were saying. It's insatiable. And that's it.
Thank you, Ira. Well, and as I'm sure most of you have all noticed, that on the back side of your handout, we have these various prayers. The prayers are all also listed in the Our Journey Home book in the 11th chapter. Oh, in fact, you know what? I don't know if I can. It may be so buried in my wallet, I don't know if I can find it. When I first got sober, I think a lot of us have these. Oh, I found it. There it is. There's both of them. Oh, this is great. I have carried these around for 18 years. These original ones. They've been in my wallet. I'm afraid they might smell a little bit. It's the third step prayer and the seventh step prayer and the prayer of St. Francis. A number of weeks ago, I told you about my sponsors, and I had George, I called him my substitute or temporary sponsor, because he pinch hit for my sponsor when my sponsor was sick for a while. And he made these up for me and laminated them. And I've carried them around in my wallet all of these years. Now, I had never heard of these prayers before I got sober. I have access to them now in books, and I see one or both of them almost every day. But I keep these little smelly little things that are falling apart in my wallet because they taught me something. They taught me to think eternally about my life in this very moment. They taught me to think eternally about my life in this and every moment. So when this wallet wears out, I'll get a new wallet, and these will go into the new wallet. And I will plan to have them for as long as they'll still go in my wallet. But I have these also here on this handout for you. One of the things I've started doing in my journaling here, and I've just started doing this in the last year, is I would take these prayers and I would write them out to myself. So I would just kind of translate them like they were written to me, or I was saying them in my own words to God. And that might be something that you might want to do. But however you do it with an open heart, open spiritual ears, and expect God to touch you in a way that's made just for you.